Good evening, and welcome to our February 23rd council work session. Roll call, we have a full council. This time, we'll go ahead and close our regular meeting and convene into our work session. On our work session, there'll be a joint mayor and council planning and zoning commission work session to review the updated draft plan. Jamie?
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and also welcome to our Planning and Zoning Commission, who is also here this evening, and our members of the public. This is another step in the public outreach plan that you approved for our general plan update. And I would also like to let anybody know, Planning and Zoning Commission or public or staff, if you do have comment, it is a work session, it is a less formal event, but you will need to speak into the microphone so it can be recorded for the video. And our rest of our schedule is this Friday. The contractors, Mr. Aldrete and Mr. Underwood, will also be getting this out to other agencies to review, and they'll go over that with you. And then our next meeting will be a Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing on May 18th, and then Mayor and Council adoption hearing in June. And then this will go on the ballot. We'll start our public outreach for the November general election. And so I would really like to thank the Planning Center staff for all of the hard work they've put into this. I send them comments all the time and they get them up usually same day. So does anyone have any questions for me before I turn it over to the Planning Center?
I do. This is a draft plan.
Yes, sir.
So what we talk about tonight, we can still make changes, even though we're not in meeting form. We can make changes to who or suggest changes. Does it come from just one of us, or do we have to be all of us?
It can come from one of you and you can discuss it because this will go in, you'll have an action item at the end, and that's where you will vote on if you've changed things during your discussion. So just for the work session purposes, everybody can have comments and input. And then when you make a motion, you discuss among yourselves what you want to be included in the motion to change or adopt as submitted, this draft. And then we'll have 2 more public hearings after this for the final draft. So this is by no means the end-all of this plan. It's just the first draft, literally the first draft.
You're talking about the action item today after we go out of here.
Yes, sir.
I'm talking about during the next couple of months because there's lots of reading here.
Yes.
Moore's going to answer. We're still going to have more suggestions. I'm
Yes,
sure.
and so during the next couple of months, if you've looked through it again and you see something you'd like to comment on, you can email me and I send those directly to the Planning Center, and they have a list of what input has come in. And when we have those public hearings, those comments will be added in with the agency hearings and the agency comments, and those will come back to you again to review again. So
How will we and the public know whether we were heard or not?
you may email me. They get a copy of each email. They have all of the survey results. It's all in a document. You can look to the comment that you had and see if we spoke about it in a council meeting. And if the council approves that, it will go in the plan. So the public can have as many emails, comments, phone calls they want. They go to the Planning Center, and then the decisions are made to include it or not by you, the city council.
And some of the meetings in the near future, they go comment there also.
Yes, they just comment until the final draft is approved in June.
Okay.
Yes, and so this is just the first draft. It's to look at the layout, the feel of it, the way it's reorganized. Staff has had their input so far. And so Garrett will also be introducing the information from the surveys. They've got a lot of data from that. Then we'll be still gathering public input. I'm meeting with the Rotary Club. Mr. Lowe invited me there. So we'll still be receiving public comment. That is not over until June.
you say staff has already had their input.
Mhm.
So, and I can tell individual departments had their input. Are they satisfied with their input now? Is this what they want us to adopt?
They have all reviewed this exact document and the comments that were made. Mr. Henry had a couple about the photos. The library had a couple about some wording, and those are incorporated in what you'll see tonight.
So staff feels good with what they have now. Okay,
Mhm.
that's correct?
Yeah, so they're in the same boat you are. They've gotten the first look at it, and this is our first real discussion. That's why I'm very glad this is the only item on the agenda, so that we can go through it and discuss it. And then after the agencies review it, then we'll have more public hearings. People can still come into my office and ask individual questions as they read it. This will be posted on our website so anybody can access it. And we can make paper copies if they want. They can come in and read it that way. So the survey has closed, but that's the only public input portion that has closed is the survey online.
Okay, ma'am, thank you.
Any other questions? Right, I'll turn it over to the Planning Center for their presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Garrett Aldrett with the Planning Center. I'm joined by Brian Underwood, Principal with the Planning Center. Thank you all for having us here tonight. It's been a great effort as we've gone through this update to the general plan. So I'll just get started real quick with a quick rundown of the agenda. So we'll go over a quick overview of what this general plan update has entailed so far, as well as a recap of the public outreach that we've done and what we've been hearing from the community and how that aligns with the 2016 general plan. And then we'll discuss the vision statement, which we did modify from the 2016 plan to this 2026 plan just to make it a little bit more punchier and work to encapsulate all of that public outreach that we've been or the public input that we've been receiving. And then we'll do a quick exercise on how to use the general plan. I know that's something that many people in the public and even those on commissions and councils, the use of the general plan is something not many people grasp. And so we're going to go through a quick exercise and hopefully impart some knowledge upon everybody and the community going forward so that this plan is very it's a usable plan for the community moving forward and everybody knows how exactly it can be used. And so looking at the 2026 general plan update, this update was based on the identified changes since 2016. So any type of nomenclature that may have changed, organizations that have changed names, new organizations that have appeared, those have been modified and revised so that it's accurate to what is today. Then staff input on new priorities. So anything we've heard is like Director Imbick had mentioned, the input from the library. So that is information we've gone and struck out of the plan of where they didn't want some of the language or they weren't the one that were they weren't the department to lead a certain action item. That's one of the changes we've done, and then updating to reflect the latest public input. So we have included a couple new policies as well as action items to address some of that public input we've heard, mainly around water conservation, and then as well as any of the changes to the character areas. So one of the character areas in the previous 2016 general plan was the regional recreation sports facility character area near the Gila River. That is something that is changed. The idea has changed around where a regional recreation facility can be and where that might best be located. And so because of that change in the direction of the city, that character area has been removed and it has just been changed to the commerce and employment, which is what incorporate or encapsulates much of that area right by the Gila River. And so there was a couple changes like that that were just minor changes just to reflect the direction of the city of Safford now. And then really what a lot of the work into the plan outside of those updating of old information was making the plan more user-friendly and easily implementable for staff. And so that was one of the things when we heard when we met with staff in November was how can we make the implementation section of the general plan a bit more forward-facing. If you remember the 2016 general plan, the implementation is pretty much in the very back of the plan. You have to get to the very back of the plan before you get to any of the tables that discuss who's the lead department on an item, what departments are going to work together, how long is that item going to take. All of that stuff was in the very back of the plan. So if you didn't get to the back of the plan, it wasn't really in the front of your mind. And so now, as you'll see in this new general plan update, each of those action items, they have the amount of time that it's supposed to be taking, who that lead department is on that, and then there's a summary report at the end of each of the chapters or the elements that discuss whether the action items have been maintained, they're ongoing, they've been completed. And so that is an annual review so that you can track the progress of the general plan as those action items are completed by departments so that it's very in the front of your mind going forward rather than in the very back of the plan. And so that was one of the changes we did to try to make it more implementable for staff and then also user friendly for anybody using it now that it's all consolidated into each of the sections that it's discussing. And then also streamlining to remove replication and redundancies. That process also helped remove a lot of that replication. Excuse me. And then as you'll see, the original 2016 plan included 3 policy volumes or 2 policy volumes in the public participation plan. Those 2 policy volumes being the background and existing conditions report and then the general plan policy volume. And so what we've done is we've taken both of those documents, took the most pertinent information from the background and existing conditions, incorporated that into the general plan, and all of what is in the general plan now is both of those plans together in a single document, so that you don't have to go and look between both of them to kind of understand a little bit more maybe about the character areas or things like that specifically. But that is really what much of this 2026 general plan update has entailed is making this document a much more streamlined, user-friendly document for everybody, whether that's staff or the residents here tonight as they go forward in using this document for the next 10 years. And so getting into some of the outreach that we've collected over the past month and a half or so, we presented some of these at the January 26th meeting. As you'll see, there has not been a lot of change in the community input. A lot of what was said in those first 60 responses has stayed the same through the next 380 responses we received. So we've received in total 380 survey responses for this public outreach. And so what do you love most about Safford is one of the questions on that survey. And as you can see, the sense of community, small town atmosphere, the peacefulness, the community events, that was something that was discussed at the January 26th meeting. That is still very much coming through on that public input. It's probably the top response of what do people love most about Safford is the small town atmosphere, the community events, the camaraderie and community that you guys have here. So that is maintained. And then local businesses and ease of doing business is the next thing that came up is what people loved. And then the potential for growth and the job opportunities afforded by the local economy. That was the third most. And then what would you like to see happen within the next 10 years? Again, much of this is very similar to the January 26th meeting. So more restaurants and retail options. There was a little bit more specificity in the input that we gathered. There was some comments whether that be more options for adults. They've wanted to see more, whether that be entertainment venues, bars, restaurants, and things like that for adults that are maybe open a little bit later than what's typical. That was some of the comment we received, and then greater variety of restaurant chains as well as grocery stores. And then more recreational amenities and programs. That was something we heard previously. That was mainly around regional sports facilities and indoor aquatic centers. But there was also many comments about people wanting to improve the existing amenities that the city of Safford has, and making sure that anything like the skate park or any of those existing recreational amenities, the multi-use path that is throughout much of the city of Safford, that those things are maintained or that they're improved, whether that's through improvements like the street lighting or the trail lighting project that the city of Safford did for a portion of that multi-use path. And so it's continuing to make improvements like that that many people had expressed was something they desired. And then expanded infrastructure, particularly roadways. They wanted to see more connections rather than dead ends on cul-de-sacs or a missed connection between a property because whenever it was dedicated for that roadway or whatever process that it went through for entitlements, it may have not been able to get the full dedication of that roadway. And so it ends up being a dead end. And so a lot of people wanted to see more connections to help alleviate some of the traffic issues that occur here in the city of Safford. And then lastly, making housing more affordable. That was one comment that had come up several times, is just the ability to, whether that's existing single family homes and making those more affordable or creating new development for the missing middle. There was a comment, there needing to be something between the apartments and the $399,000 home. And that's usually what planners refer to as missing middle. And that could be things like duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. And so that's where some of the comments had come from the public. We're wanting to really focus on housing and how we can make housing more affordable in the city of Safford. And then looking at the priorities, if any of you took the survey, you may have remembered at the end of that survey there was an ask for that you rank 10 items, the top 5 priorities of yours. So for the top 5 priorities for City of Safford from the community input, the number 1 with 126 votes was additional restaurant, retail, and service opportunities. With 124 votes was high quality public community services, so schools, water, sewer, waste management, police, fire, library, all of those being high quality services. Then tied with 124 votes, a variety of safe, affordable, quality housing for all. And then 200 vote ties, sports facilities, recreational activities, and programs for all, and protecting Safford's unique heritage, character, small town charm. So many of those things that we'd asked people to write and voice themselves as to what it is that they like the most, they ended up being their priorities as well. So moving on to those last 5, public gathering spaces for local events and tourism opportunities that had 81 votes, retention, expansion, and attraction of major and high wage employers, a safe, efficient, and connected transportation network, 68 votes, local, small, and home-based business support, 58 votes, and then infill, revitalization, redevelopment, 45 votes. And so going through this public outreach process, we started to look at the existing 2016 general plan and do these comments align with what was already in the plan, as that was part of our charge with this update, was making sure that it still aligns. And much of what was in that 2016 general plan very much aligns with the direction that the residents have suggested they would like to see the city of Safford. And so part of that was just making sure that that information came out clearer in this update. And so we did revise some of the ordering of some of the listings so that the most important items are those right at the top of that list, as well as I had mentioned some of the goals, policies, and action items. We did revise a couple of those, or a few of those, just to make sure that these priorities are coming through in that general plan update, and anything that was possibly not covered in the 2016 general plan is being covered now from what we've heard from the community. And so I had mentioned the vision statement for the 2016 general plan. As you can see, it's here on the board. I had this a little bit bolder, but unfortunately, it looks like our fonts do not align with the iPad. And so what this original vision statement, it's a very listy vision statement, it gets at many of the things that the community wants. But it could be a bit shorter, it could be said a bit clearer, it could be made a bit more punchy, so that it's something that is very much uh, something that you can go out to the developers or anybody that you want to see develop in your community and make sure that, hey, does what you're proposing align with our vision statement? And so that's where we've revised this to now it states the city of Safford is a welcoming, attractive community that blends small town charm with broad economic opportunity. Safford stands as a destination in the Gila Valley with a thriving downtown, excellent municipal services, and abundant recreation and sports amenities. Building on its mining and agribusiness legacy, Safford is expanding employment, retail, and service offerings, all supported by safe, livable neighborhoods and attainable housing that guide responsible growth. And so that's the revision we did to this statement. Is when you read the two, you'll see that it very much picks up the same content, same ideas, same theme, just a bit shorter, a bit more to the point, and makes it a easier thing for any of the staff or council, commission, residents, anybody like that to express what it is the direction of the city of Safford's going. And then just wrapping up on that public outreach, we had asked where residents have seen growth occurring in the city of Safford. So these blue dots, the larger the blue dot, the more responses were to that area. And so as you'll see, a lot of comments were around the Mount Graham Regional Medical Center, Main Street, down off of Discovery Park and 20th. It's a bit vacant right now, but there is some housing going on there. And then outside of the city limits, south of the city of Safford along 191, that was where a lot of people have seen growth occurring, as well as in Thatcher. Many comments had suggested that Pima and Thatcher have seen a lot of growth, and they've continued to see a lot of growth in so the neighboring communities. And so that's where many of the residents have currently said they see growth occurring. And then we also asked where they would like to see growth occur. And so with this one, same concept, the larger the bubble, the more responses to that area. And so a lot of those responses were around 20th and at the city limits into Thatcher, where you kind of have some of the commercial retail going on already, the big box stores and things like that. And then Main Street downtown, that was probably one of the most requested areas for wanting to see growth and see new development. And then as far as the ability for housing, a lot of comments regarding the wanting to see growth on the east side of the city of Safford, more towards or the community of Solomon, moving more towards that direction with growth, and that's where people would like to see it occur is more towards the east of the city of Safford. That's what we had heard from the input. And so with this general plan update, is you've gone through this the draft document, you'll see that these were the elements: the land use element, transportation, circulation, parks, recreation, trails, and open space, economic development, environmental planning, water resources, housing, preservation, revitalization, redevelopment, public building services and infrastructure safety element, and then cost of development. And so that's how the plan's been reorganized. Hopefully that is a direction that you all have seen now with this draft plan, and that the reason for that was just to make sure that the most pertinent information is described and discussed in the element that it's most applicable to. The old plan had a lot of discussion, cross-talk between elements, and so we wanted to reduce that to make this document a much shorter document. And so with that being said, it's now down to, I believe, 135. We're going to beef that up with some more pictures and some the public participation section. We'll add that in now that the survey closed on Friday, and so it'll have a few more. But it's a much shorter plan, meant to make it a much easier to use plan for all of you. And talking about how to use that plan, I just wanted to do a brief recap of the general plan goals, policies, and action items. So as you had read through the goals, those being broad statements that describe the community's desired long-term outcomes and articulate the vision for Safford's future development. So a goal answers the question, what are we striving to achieve? And then policies, guiding statements that that support the goals by directing decisions, programs, and long-term strategy. So a policy answers the question, how will we move toward the goal? And then action items being specific tasks, projects, or strategies necessary to carry out the policies and implement the general plan. So these measures identify what action will occur, who is responsible, and the expected time frame. So an action item answers the question, what exactly will be done, by whom, and when? And so when you went through the plan, you probably noticed a lot of those action items, they had the initials next to them. And so a lot of the action items are meant for direction for the departments so that they know what they need to be working on a yearly basis to achieve the general plan. And so the action items are not necessarily something that an applicant coming into the planning and community development department is going to try to achieve with their project. Those are more so meant for the departments so that they can work towards achieving those, and that's their role in achieving the goals and policies of the general plan is accomplishing those action items.
Sure.
Yes.
So did they assign it, they assign that level of priority to themselves? You know, ongoing, whatever, to remind them, since they're the ones that were doing this, the departments. Is that a reminder of how quickly they want to work on these things?
Yeah, so the 2016 general plan, as you'll see in the back of it, it has the same kind of timeframes associated with action items. That plan was done over a 20-year planning horizon, so it's a bit longer. We only have 20 or 10 years left in that 20-year planning horizon. And so they, during the formulation of that plan, provided a lot more direction as to whether they saw this as an action item for them to achieve within the year, within the next 5 years, or with over the 10-year life of the plan. And so from there, we maintained many of those time frames that they had suggested. And then as we added the action items, just from our knowledge of how long it can take to make you do an update to the code or anything like that, we have a good idea as to how long that will take somebody to achieve. Now, with them being able to review it, that's what the library did. They came back and they crossed their names off of one of the department leads. As that was not an action item that they saw themselves leading, and so that's part of this review from the department heads, is to make sure that those items are what they see is the their way moving forward over the next 10 years for this plan.
What they're concentrating on. Thank you.
Yeah. So the discussion of those general plan goals, policies, and action items, do have an example goal here being 6.1. So that's ensure a diversity of housing opportunities. So the policies for that being encourage a wide range of housing types and price ranges within new developments to support the current and projected populations, support master planning, zoning, and subdivision processes that incorporate a diversity of housing types and densities to ensure there's affordable housing for all income ranges, encourage mixed-use development in Safford's downtown, employment centers, growth areas, and other appropriate areas. And so how would you go about achieving all of those policies and this goal? The action items consider implementing strategies that encourage mixed-use development that incorporates affordable housing and utilizes creative tools such as government property lease excise tax to help offset costs for developers. And so if nobody knows what GPLET is, or that's the acronym is GPLET, that's a program that the city of Tucson and many other jurisdictions in the state of Arizona have used to help facilitate economic development. And it's not necessarily an economic development tool, but it can help offset costs if for developers by allowing an excise tax to be rather than a tax on their property value when they go to make those improvements. And so that's where using a tool like that can help achieve new development in the city of Safford and help offset some of the costs that may not allow that development to occur as it is now. And so those are some of the action items, and those would be things that the Director Imbick would kind of as you can see here, PCED, that's her designation, Planning Community Economic Development. That would be something for her to work on over the next 5-10 years life of this plan, is making sure that there's the ability for anybody coming in, or the ability for the city of Safford to have those negotiations around some of these more complex tools. And so that's kind of how the action items work versus the goals and the policies. And so the action items are very much a department heavy and specific item of the general plan.
Is that, isn't that programmed for a larger scale subdivision?
GPLET, it can be for industrial projects, mixed use projects, commercial projects, residential projects. The state has, the Department of Revenue has a tax chart. So basically, depending on what your project is, the characteristics of your project, if it's a 1-story office use, or maybe it's a 1 to 5-story mixed use development, or a 5 to plus story mixed use development, there's a certain tax rate that is charged or assumed per square foot of that development. And so then that is what the excise tax that is charged to a property owner, rather than the property tax, which would be based off the value they create from their development. And so that difference, it could be for it could be for multifamily, it could be for industrial, it can be for commercial, it could be for mixed use. So it's not specific to any one use.
If somebody wanted to build 5 homes, would that apply to them?
It would not.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, well, it would also be dependent upon what the city of Safford wanted to do, because it is a government property lease excise tax. Essentially, the city of Safford would be the one who is the property owner. You switch, the property owner comes to the city of Safford and said, I would like to do this, but I can't make it pencil because of the cost associated with this or with that. And so what I would like to propose to the city of Safford is that we do a GPLET, and you will take ownership of this land and then lease it back to me. And so because you, the city of Safford, now owns that land, you don't pay the property tax on it, but you assess an excise tax to that property owner who's leasing it. And so that might be a lesser tax or a lesser tax burden for them. And that's what makes their development able to pencil out and allows them to build it. And so if the city of Safford said, yes, we want to do 5 homes on these, we can work that out. There might not be the ability for the city of Safford to get the value out of like a small project with 5 homes, but that would be a discussion for the city of Safford, mayor and council, the city manager to have that discussion as to whether that's the most appropriate tool. As you mentioned, and as you mentioned, the housing. If you look at 2, work with developers and encourage the use of low-income housing tax credits, community land trust, deed restrictions, equity sharing models, and cooperatives to facilitate the development of affordable housing. That might be those kind of tools may be more appropriate for a 5 houses subdivision. One of those tools, whether that's a community land trust that you can work with. We do a lot of work with Southern Arizona Land Trust. They're a developer in Tucson, in Southern Arizona, and they do community land trusts. And so those are things that can help get somebody in a home that is theirs to use. They don't own the land underneath the home, but they own the home, and that is their home. And so those are just different tools that the community can look at to try to create housing affordability. And so it's more so, what is the right tool for the city of Safford, or what is the right tool for that project? And so with these action items, we wanted to make sure that we discuss what those tools can be. And then it's taking that next step of, when you get that opportunity of a project in front of you, what is the right tool for this? And how do we make sure that this project develops while we use that tool? And so it's the GPLET was just one of the tools that I had mentioned. There can be several of them that might be more appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now that we've kind of gotten into the goals and policies, I would like to propose a hypothetical scenario. This is completely hypothetical, and it's more so how to use the general plan. So this is not any, there's nothing factual as far as a real project, real life project coming out of this. This is just a hypothetical scenario. I want to make that very clear. So I'll just go ahead and read it. So Mount Graham Regional Medical Center. Mount Graham Regional Medical Center would like to develop 1 to 2-story workforce housing on its existing property to support its employees through reduced housing costs. Mount Graham Regional Medical Center currently owns 2 partially developed parcels with over 10 acres remaining on each. Mount Graham Regional Medical Center is proposing a 45-unit multifamily development on 3 acres of its existing property. This property is zoned agricultural residential, which does not prevent or permit multifamily development. So Mount Graham Regional Medical Center must seek a rezoning to the multifamily residential district, or the R2 zone. So is this request supported by the general plan? You know, if anybody's read the draft plan so far, if there's any goals or maybe a policy in it that you might think. Great. Yes. So goal 6.1, our last example, that's a goal that would support this request to rezone to R2 for multifamily development. It's for a different housing type than what exists currently. Uh, as you can see, goal 6.1 was ensure a diversity of housing opportunities. So this request is bringing that diversity of housing opportunities with a 1 to 2 story multifamily. And that might be something like a casita development. If anybody's heard of those, like a bungalow development, it's a kind of almost like an apartment unit that's its own building. It's just that building. And you have a bunch of those real close to each other. And so something like that would be a casita development rather than your typical garden style apartment where it's all connected into one large building with multiple units and multiple floors. You know, something like that may not always be the most compatible with the area around it, which is what I'll talk about as I go into evaluating how this general plan is used to assess this request. And so looking, is this request supported by the general plan? So what is the context of the property? So when you look at that property, you have to look at the surrounding uses and its current use. You'll see that just to that north of that parcel on the previous slide here, you'll see all those single family homes that border that property. And so you have single family homes right on your north and west property lines. Then you have the Mount Graham Regional Medical Center to your east and vacant land to your south. And then you have more single family homes in Thatcher further to the west. And so what you're really seeing here is that this is an infill site. It's served by all of the utilities. It is served by roadways. It has existing development around it. And so it's an infill site. But what that existing development that surrounds it, being the single family homes, you need to be a little bit more um, compatible with those uses so that when you come in for an R2 rezoning, your project is going to be compatible with what already exists in the community today. And so that's another part of the general plan, existing neighborhoods. You'll see that's what that orangish color on this map is. That's the neighborhood's land use character. And so you have the pink being the medical corridor character area. And so what character area of the general plan is the property within? It's in the medical corridor character area. And so this character area supports assisted living, rehabilitation, and physical therapy, medical offices, and the expansion of Mount Graham Regional Medical Center. As you'll see, that character area doesn't necessarily support housing, but because this is a workforce housing project being proposed by Mount Graham Regional Medical Center, that would be an appropriate use within that character area because that would be considered an expansion of Mount Graham Regional Medical Center's campus. And so that's kind of how you have to look at what is appropriate for a character area. It may not be explicitly said that that is appropriate, but based off who's proposing it, it may be. And for the medical corridor character area, if it's furthering the goal of expanding Mount Graham Regional Medical Center, then that would be an appropriate use for this character area. And so that's one of the ways you also need to evaluate any properties and requests coming in is what is the character area and what does that character area support as far as any new development or any of the existing development that's there. And so looking at some of the other goals and policies that would support this request, goal 1.1, guide growth strategically by aligning land use, infrastructure, natural resource protection, economic development, and economic development to support a thriving, sustainable Safford. And so with this goal, we meet the goal by providing housing near existing infrastructure. It's on land that is not a high natural resource area, and it helps promote economic development through the expansion of the Mount Graham Regional Medical Center. So that this proposal meets this goal. And then policy one, prioritize growth and infill in areas with existing or planned infrastructure to support fiscally responsible and orderly development. And so this being on a property that is partially developed already for Mount Graham Regional Medical Center in an area already served by utilities and roadways, this is an infill area, as I had mentioned earlier. And so by developing on this property, you're meeting policy one. And then policy two, encourage a mix of uses clustered in high density housing near employment and commercial areas to enhance walkability, reduce vehicle travel, and foster active lifestyles. And again, this is if you do 45 units on 3 acres, that's 15 dwelling units an acre. That's typically considered high density housing in many jurisdictions. And so you are meeting policy two because you are providing that high density housing in very close proximity to the existing employment center of Mount Graham Regional Medical Center. And so that means anybody who is an employee of Mount Graham Regional Medical Center and is able to take part in this workforce housing, they may no longer have to drive their car to work anymore. And so that gets you closer so that you have enhanced walkability and reduced vehicle travel, and that's a more active lifestyle. So you are achieving policy two through this request as well. And then goal 4.7 from the economic development element, develop a workforce strategy designed to meet the business needs of the Gila Valley region, and the policy for that being incorporate workforce housing in mixed use activity centers. And so, as I had just mentioned, this would be a workforce housing project. Again, hypothetical scenario, nothing that exists today in real life, but it would be a workforce housing project in a mixed use activity center. That mixed use activity center being the area around Mount Graham Regional Medical Center. And so it also achieves goal 4.7 and policy 2. And so from looking at the goals and policies of the general plan, when an applicant comes in with a rezoning request, you can look through those and say, well, is their request meeting the intent of this general plan? And so a request for a housing product like this, it would be supported by the general plan. But there are other aspects to consider with that are part of this general plan. And so if you are to rezone to R2, which is the multifamily zone in the city of Safford, are there any development standards of the R2 zone that would either not allow or discourage the type of housing products that are encouraged in the general plan? So for example, with this product, we suggested it would be a 1 to 2 story multifamily development, 45 units on 3 acres. Well, the R2 zone has a lot coverage of 50%. So what that lot coverage being, the lot coverage is defined as buildings and structures, and then in structures is defined as anything constructed for use, occupancy, or ornamentation that is on the ground or attached to the ground. And so that could be, it would be things like your asphalt for your parking lot, your sidewalks, if you have a structure for like a shade structure for solar or anything over any of those parking spaces, that area would be counted. Obviously, it's part of the parking. So your building area, your clubhouse, your amenity area with those impervious surfaces, all of that would count towards your lot coverage. And so you couldn't cover with a 3 acre, that's 130 something thousand square feet. So 65,000 square feet of that is all you could use in that 3 acres for your 1 to 2 story multifamily project. Now, once you start mathing it out at what the average dwelling unit size is, what the average size for a clubhouse may be for a multifamily product, how much parking is required to be provided with this development, you start to see that, okay, well, it may be appropriate for the R2 zone, but can you develop a 1 to 2 story casita development within the R2 just under its existing zoning? And that's where you start to say, okay, it may not work because we can't meet some of these development standards of our current zoning code that that we would like to encourage this type of housing, and our general plan would like to encourage it, but our city code doesn't allow it because of these development standards. And so what is the avenue somebody might take to develop a project that's not permitted by current development standards of the city of Safford? One of those would be amending the lot coverage requirements through a planned unit development. And so a planned unit development is it's meant more so for a larger product or larger project. In the city of Safford, the requirement is a minimum of 2 acres for a PUD. So if you have less than 2 acres, you cannot modify any of your development standards for a PUD. But that planned unit development is meant to kind of create a cohesive vision of what the development's going to be, and provide that to mayor and council prior to any rezoning, so that you have a better understanding of what the development's going to be. Unfortunately, the way in which it's written in the code, it can be a bit of a struggle to understand its process. And so that's where it may not be the most friendly to anybody coming into the city of Safford to develop, because it's not the clearest of the code as to how that might be achieved. And so then another way in which you can amend the code rather than just amending the PUD, it would be amending the lot coverage requirements for the R2 zone. But what you end up doing with that is, when you change the lot coverage requirements for the R2 zone, you're changing it for everybody with R2. And so that might not be the best way for the city of Safford to move forward with a change to your code to allow you to develop the type of housing that is encouraged in the general plan. And then the third option that you may be able to achieve would be not allowing the further establishment of PUDs, but instituting and establishing a new zoning district called a planned area development. And planned area developments are used in jurisdictions all across the state of Arizona. They're very common. Some cities, like the city I'm from, they have basically their zoning is almost entirely within PADs. A lot of their master plan communities have come through PADs. So what a PAD, or planned area development, is it's basically a way for a property owner to come in and propose their own standards for what they're developing. And so, for the example of this project, a 45 unit, 1 to 2 story project coming in to develop workforce housing, if they wanted to, currently within the R2 zone, the height limit is 45 feet and 4 stories. So you could develop a 4-story product in your R2 zone. Is a 4-story product always the most compatible product next to single family homes? And the answer is probably going to be no, it isn't. And so that's where with a PAD, somebody can come in and say, well, we would like to do 3 acres on the Mount Graham Regional Medical Center, and we would like to allow, maybe it's no lot coverage requirement. We're going to waive that completely, but we'll make our own height standard and say we're not going to go any taller than 25 feet. And so you end up getting a more compatible project with more compatible zoning in these areas by allowing a developer to come in and suggest their own standards, rather than going with the strict standards of the zoning code, which may not be the most compatible with its surrounding development. And so the PAD zone would be a way for a developer to provide their own standards and get their project they would like. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because this falls directly in line with the action items for goals of 1.1, which are review and amend zoning, subdivision, and development standards to support mixed-use development, walkability, and infill where appropriate, and in designated growth areas. And so this is something that Director Imbick will have to look at to make sure that the zoning code currently is able to support all of the different housing types that are encouraged by the general plan. And so that anybody coming in, they aren't left thinking, well, I can't even do my project because the zoning code doesn't allow it. And now I have to wait for, maybe mayor and council to go through a process to maybe amend the zoning code so that this project is able to go forward. It introduces time constraints to anybody trying to develop. And when they see that they have to wait out another 6 month to a year process, they may just cut bait and leave. And so that's where, part of the general plan is these action items of making sure that the existing zoning code is one that is able to achieve what the general plan is suggesting it should be able to. And so that was just a quick kind of hypothetical scenario that helps means test the general plan, means test the code, make sure the code is able to achieve what the general plan is saying it should be able to achieve. Um, if there's any more, I've spoken a lot. Yes. Yes, go for it.
As an avid talker, I don't really like microphones. But I don't want to turn it over to Arnold, so. I'm on P and Z, so my concern is there. I was a city councilman for several years, and water seems to be an issue here that I'm worried about, and I'm sure some of you are worried about. When we put that sewer plant in, they said, if you go one step further, you will have drinkable water. Well, that was a few years back. I don't know what's changed and what hasn't. But I do know we've been in a drought for several years, and I know people are going to want water. I know some places like Scottsdale and Mesa, they say, okay, you can build there, but this is the amount of water you can use, and you decide where you're going to use it. And I think we need to do something like that. It's a little, I don't see the details, on how are we going to get the water to that issue? Are we going to set it up so that they're not contaminating the water, the groundwater? How do we deal with the farmers? How do we help them? How do we help the rest of the communities in Graham County to get this done? We can't just say, well, we don't have enough water to let everybody else have water. So that concerns me. I'm concerned about capacity fees, reclaimed water, water conservation programs, water reduction. Some of the, we're not used to having to conserve water. I would like to see the airport continue to come back. I think that's great. And I think that would be something super. And I know there's areas out there where that can be done, and people that do airports can help us there. Impact fees and electrical and gas systems. Does anyone have an idea what's going to happen in the next 10 years? You may not be doing natural gas. And we talk about solar. It may not be solar. I hope it's not wind. I don't like the wind. So, yes, but yeah, I'd like to see us working as a group, and thank you for letting me.
Great. Thank you for those comments. And, I'll also say that this is a general plan, so it is a little bit more general. The specifics are not going to be here. If anybody on the mayor and council or planning and zoning commission, any of the residents, there is a community water system plan that was prepared by Westland Engineering in October of 2025. So it's a very recent plan. And so that plan, it speaks to a lot of the specifics as to just how exactly the reclaimed water system is currently functioning in the city of Safford. So when I read that, it made mention that the current output of the reclaimed is well below what it could possibly be. And the only way for the reclaimed output to increase is by having more sewer connections to the plant. And so that you can reuse that wastewater. And so we made a couple action items within I believe the public building services and infrastructure element to search for new customers for that reclaimed water plant so that it can increase its output and that you're able to get all of the reclaimed water out of that system as it's currently constructed to be able to. So there's a couple of instances like that where there's other plans that need to be created or are already created that provide a lot more of those specifics to how to achieve these in the general plan. Because again, it is a general plan. So it's very big picture. And if there's no other questions at the moment, I will just go over the next bit of the next steps for this project. And so we will continue to incorporate any of the public outreach into the general plan. the draft plan. And so anything we hear tonight, anything we've heard or continue to hear over the next few days, we'll incorporate that into the plan that's going to go out for agency review and have that as close to a final. And then as the next 2 months of agency review go on, the next 60 days, we will wait for any other comments and incorporate any of those comments into the plan as we hear them. And then by the end of that 60-day agency review, we will be at the point for the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing for the recommendation for the adoption of the plan. That will be on Monday, May 18th at 6 p.m. And then after that, the mayor and council public hearing to adopt the plan will be on either June 8th or June 22nd at 6 p.m. And then from there, it'll be out to the voters for ratification on the Tuesday, November 3rd election date. If there are no other questions, then that is all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple of things. I noticed on page 92, we have on there, City of Safford currently owns and operates the Graham landfill. Waste collection and recycling are services provided, and we don't provide recycling. So I'd like to maybe see that be removed.
Talking about 92 on what different than what he presented, what we have.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 92 of the actual document that was provided in our packet. Yeah, so under sanitary sewer, solid waste collection and water, that I think it's like one of the last sentences there.
Yeah. I'll definitely get that taken care of.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
remove that. Kind of going back to impact fees, I know that was brought up, but I don't think the city does impact fees anymore. It's all just developmental fees, I believe, maybe.
Hi, I'm Jeff Lowe, Utility Director. We reduced them significantly, so they were in the range of 4,000 to 5,000 for residential home, and now they're approximately 500.
Okay,
So
so
they've
we
been-
just, we still have them.
We still
Okay.
have them, but they're very much reduced.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And they were defined as something else, not impact fees, but okay. Another. I did notice that they're really under the housing section. I can't find it now, but under the housing section, I didn't know, I didn't feel like it really addresses so much the issues of the affordable housing. And I don't know that it may be, because it does need to be a general, just, not necessarily very specific to that. But I just want to make sure that that's being incorporated in there in a way that is, like you said, easy to understand, easy for us to follow, and the community to follow, to know that that is important to us, and that we want to see that be a priority.
Yeah, so thank you. Sorry. Members of the, sorry. Thank you for your comments. And yes, we had hoped at the start of this that the Graham County housing study would have been currently available to us so that we could include some of that information into the plan. That is still, I believe, tied up with review. And so unfortunately, that housing study was not able to make its way into this plan. But I can, looking at this section, I can definitely take some days this week to beef that up and make sure that the housing affordability comes through very strong on that.
You talked about, brought up annexation strategy. That's going to be a big thing for us. We have a lot of things that are landlocked now, or they're not being developed by the people that own the properties. We can't get roads through there because they're not developing them. And a lot of our area is east of town right now, where we have the utilities. And so annexation is what we've talked about several times, and I don't know where we're going to go forward with that, what the exact plan is.
Yeah, so at the, okay.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we are in the process, when Mr. Bejarano returns from vacation, we're going to be reviewing a draft annexation fiscal impact policy for that eastern area. And so that will be coming to council in the next couple of months. And so we'll be looking at starting to potentially annex to the east of town. So that will be coming up in the next few months.
Is the railroad part of that annexation talk?
There is a parcel that has an at-grade crossing that is owned by Langley Development that will be included. So yes, they are property owners and they have received a notification that we are thinking about possibly looking that way. And so the railroad is one of the property owners, yes.
Because also some of your plan, 10-year plan involves utilizing the railroad to enhance how we want to draw people here, such as the airport. We want to be able to go that direction too.
Yes, sir.
So working that annexation along with Freeport, who had spoke about a railroad spur jumping out there too. Is that all in your mind too, Jamie?
Yes, sir. And so I was glad that the Planning Center mentioned GPLET and LIHTC credits and those type of things. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, a gentleman came into my office who may be doing a LIHTC project. And then the legislature has a couple of bills about GPLETs and reducing the number of years that you can have them. And so we're waiting on that legislative decision and to see if the governor signs that bill. And then GPLETs are definitely something that we're looking at, because what we seem to have the problem with is the infrastructure financing. And so we're also going to look at our CIP projects holistically so that we come to the council showing this helps this area, this connects this with water, this connects this with sewer, this provides, as they were talking about, infill development, how we can serve our properties within the city of Safford. We're also working with a land use attorney on the El Conquistador subdivision. So we've been working on that a while. And so we're trying to shake that loose. And what this general plan will do is show that the council supports these things, they want housing, and our code. My next step as a director, one of the projects that I have in here is looking at our code comprehensively and saying, okay, we're a very long-term community. Our code has some older things. When it was written, who knew about data centers? So we really need to holistically look at our code, our zoning, these new things that have come into being since the code was written, and that's our next step. And we're also updating our building code so that Safford, Thatcher, Pima, and the county are all on the same code cycle. We are all working together with our inspectors. And so we're really trying to make this general plan a document where we can say, okay, council, this is the public input. They like small town feel. We want to make sure that that's always top of our mind when we're looking at developments. And with that frame of reference, how can we make these projects possible so that we can have housing, but to the scale and quality that the city of Safford citizens would like to see?
We get beat up because they say our codes are stricter than the other communities, and to an extent they're not. But now you're going to work to prove it to the valley that we are the same.
We are the same. We are different in some ways, as we have sewer where unincorporated areas of the county don't. So we're the same but different, and we're really working like the accessory dwelling unit allowances that we made before the state even required that. We're really working, and that's why I appreciate the Planning Center, because how many people do you have on staff? 11. So they have 11 professional planners on their staff, which is a huge resource for me because the city of Safford has one planner, me. So I'm really excited about this opportunity because the more I can absorb from them, the more techniques we can learn, the more we can look holistically at these development issues and really do current best practices and work with the council, work with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Chair Patterson comes to our development review meetings now. We're really trying to do the best that we can. And if our rules are outdated and need updated, that's the next step in the process. And the planning center, the planning center will more than likely be support for that as well.
Well, they say they're not friendly, but the way we are, we're not friendly. But I think that we are, but we can't have the citizens absorbing the costs
Correct,
for individual contractors.
correct.
There's the cost.
Correct, and that's the LIHTC credits that I mentioned. Those are tax credits that the developer can sell on the open market. So the citizens of Safford aren't paying that. It's a completely different thing. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to make sure any projects the city of Safford pays for serve all our citizens. Any rules that we can make, like he was giving the example of height standards instead of lot coverage, we should be as open-minded and flexible to those while maintaining our small town feel and our hometown community. And so this exercise in the general plan, I know it can sometimes be lengthy, but it gets us all on the same page. And I was talking to staff today. It really, if we have staff changes, if we have a new city manager, they can come on board, take this document and be like, okay, the citizens have spoken. This is what they want. Here's where our departments need to go. Here's how we get there. I've been the planning director for 4 years. So for me, it's continuing my work. But if I left tomorrow and a new person came in, they could just pick it up and run with it. And that's really continuity is what I'm looking at this helping with as well.
Well, this plan you gave us to study is different than what was presented. So to me, there's still a lot to talk to you about as far
Yes.
as me.
Yes, and that's what tonight is, to ask questions of myself, to ask questions of the planning center. And some of it is a little different because as the input came in, like the library, she gave him the input after we had put this out because she had input on this document. So at this point, it's being edited as information comes in. So tonight's information, so the recycling that Councilwoman Flores said, that will go in to the draft. So it's ever changing as a draft. And so what you're looking at tonight is, are there any obvious things that you like or don't like? And for a draft, is this a good working point to get out to other agencies, get their feedback, and then have more public meetings?
As a draft, I like the way it's set up, the format and that
Mhm.
kind. It caused a lot of questions and stuff. but,
Good.
If I asked you as many as I have here, my friends would choke me. And so.
Well, that's the beauty of what I've been saying at every meeting is if you don't want to ask it in these public forums, my phone number, my email, Monday through Thursday, I have office hours set apart. Just like you called this morning and we went through some things. Anybody in the public can do that. Anybody on the council can do that. We can go through your individual concerns. And that option is open all the way until the final plan is put up. Because what's your date before we publish it for a public hearing? 2 weeks? Yeah. So you have 2 weeks before May 18th to have all the public input you would like.
Okay, and two, a citizen asked about traffic lights, and I didn't see them in here. Studies for traffic lights, future traffic lights, intersections that are vulnerable to the growth coming on. the roads that need to go through. We've been planning on putting 14th Avenue going, because you mentioned Conquistador that's been going on for decades. We
It's
don't
as
have
old as
that-
I am, literally.
Yeah, we don't have that bridge. We have a little red mark on the map that we've been thinking about it for decades, but we need to get through there.
Yes, and Mr. Henry's here this evening. I think you'll be quite excited to hear that when the CIP projects come up this year, that just might be on there.
Yeah, we need some.
We're really trying to steer it that way. And so as far as traffic analysis, lights, things like that, that requirement's already in our code. So if you have a subdivision, you've seen the traffic impact analysis that comes with large developments or subdivision. That's embedded in our actual working code. This is the overarching general umbrella. So the traffic studies and impact analysis are already required for any subdivision, large development, things like that.
Some of the reasons we can't develop is no fault, our fault necessarily. We do have a subdivision by the high school, for example, we want to put in, but we can't seem to get the tradesmen to build it.
And that's where my role, where these are assigned to me, is to work with other professional planners, work with the legislature, work with economic development agencies. Somebody's got to have a solution. My job is to go find it and bring it to the council and say, here's the general plan goal. Here are some tools I found. Which one would you like to use?
Well, I like the way it's formatted, the targeting you have on there, that part I like about it, but there's still a lot of questions. And then like the impact fees, we call them impact fees. Mr. Bingham's not here, but even when people go to hook up, say, their electricity, they are charged twice or twice and a half or sometimes 4 times what their average highest bill was, which small business can be $600, and if they have 2 meters on the building, that's quite an impact.
Yeah.
And that's on the highest one. I don't see why it can't be the average of the entire bill, for example. And then when I was talking about this, I asked Bea about it, and she told me something about being bonded or something that I never knew about. I don't know if you care to say that, Bea.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, not at this moment, just because that's not something that's on the agenda for us to discuss, anything about utility deposits in that aspect. But yeah, if anybody wants to ask me that question off the record, we can, and we can talk about the utility bonds.
But there's help.
There is help, yes.
There's help for a small business to try to reduce the impact of what we're charging.
And as far as the general plan goes, where he showed the goals, supporting small businesses was a huge goal. So you take that goal and then you look at your policies and you revise them to support small businesses. So that's where the general plan is the big umbrella. 10 things could fit under support small businesses. One of those may be look at how we're billing utilities. Does that make sense?
Yes. 'Cause
So
that's-
if we had everything in this plan, we'd never get through. It would just be tremendously enormous. And so what this is trying to do is say, okay, these are our priorities. Anything we do, any way we charge utilities, any way we build a street, any way we do our CIP should fit in this umbrella, and we should be able to state how it fits.
Well, I guess, and the more I looked at it, most of my questions are going to come out during budget then.
Yes.
It- with budget, we're, we get Mr. Lowe this year. Good. I'm glad we get the,
Yep.
Mr. Henry already knows how ornery these people are. So,
Yes, and so I'm very excited that you have questions, that you're interacting, because this is our guiding document that you, the city council, see as, and the citizens see as your vision for the next 10 years. And so I would be very sad if you didn't have questions, comments, or concerns, because this is the game plan that we all work together to create. And then myself and the other department heads have clear direction that we want small town values, we want small business support, we make that happen. And it helps us to bring things to you that fit into this plan. Otherwise, I have 30 planning projects I could work on next week. This helps me choose what to prioritize as a planning department of one.
Well, I'm glad you have somewhere to go to ask the questions, because that, the one the gentleman presented about the hospital, you need help.
Yes, and so that's also what this should really open up for discussion is possibilities. If I'm insulated in myself, my planning, my professional planning education is 15 years old now. What's changed? We didn't have data centers. We didn't have this housing need. The mine was closing years ago. Now it's growing. I have to have professional connections to keep learning, keep growing, keep updating these things so that we can serve our citizens the best current practices and get them the services they want and need to the best of our ability.
One thing I saw kept coming up, and it seemed like everywhere, was cooperation with the walk, or the thing that's going on along the river. That don't seem to be, there don't seem to be the cooperation there for that, and I don't know. I'd just soon let it drop.
Then that's a great comment that the council can discuss and remove that. That's what tonight is for. If you're like thinking that you have 10 other things that you would like to see happen and that one's a little hard to do, or maybe the support isn't there, that this is the time to discuss that with the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission and maybe remove that from the draft.
Okay.
I did find, real quickly, on our website, we do have capacity fees, not impact fees.
Yes.
And impact fees, very specifically, that term does have different requirements.
Yes,
So I would like to consider changing that verbiage from impact
to
to capacity.
capacity. Yes. So that is a change that they will just do this week before it goes out. Yeah. And so that's why we have all of these eyes with all of these different interests on this plan, because one commissioner may be interested in water, one may be interested in housing, one may want an aquatic center. Everybody can read the section they're interested in, they have the knowledge in, and can provide this input. So please, feel free to speak up, make any changes, edits. Even if you find a typo, now is the time.
And, oh, you done, Alma?
Oh, no, well, Jamie, I do have some grammar ones that I will
Yes,
just send to you.
those can go in an email, and
Okay.
those you guys don't need to vote on. Just let us know. It's just grammatical. It's not changing the content.
Okay.
And I'm with you, Mr. Ragland. Water's the most important thing. And water exploration, another idea for budget talks and where we're going. I think you've got to speak with Mr. Lowe. I think he's headed in, you guys both headed in a good direction to help the community on answering some of that. We've done things as far as individual customers as the meters now. So we do, hopefully we can get some cooperation with conservation when that comes up next time, because we didn't seem to have much last time. And so it's always on my mind, water. I don't know that one step away from drinkable is going to go across. We can't get golf. It's one step away now from drinkable, and you can't get the golfers to get their ball out of the water, and they don't want to use it again. So, yeah. So if we can't get the golfers to get their ball and use it again, we can't get the moms to sit their babies down on the lawn in front of City Hall if we use that water for sprinkling. So it's a mindset that I hope you can figure out.
Mayor Ortega,
Mhm.
point of order. If there's going to be any discussion, Mr. Ragland, please go to the podium, or else like it's just completely silence when we play it back, or on YouTube for those watching.
Yes,
Thank
no
you.
one else can hear you.
I got you in trouble. Okay, no, I'm done, sir. Thank you. I'm done.
Does anyone
Uh,
else have any questions for myself or the planning center?
I do, you have a list of different priorities too. I don't remember what page it is, but left off of that is the maintenance of our vehicles, the maintenance of different maintenance. Now, you don't maintain our vehicles and our tools, you're not gonna get any of this done. And so maintenance needs to be brought into here. If it's on here, it's budget again, but
Well, actually, the comment around maintenance, I believe you'll find a policy, maybe an action item within the public building services and infrastructure um, element, as that talks about any of the city's current buildings as well as the fleet that they maintain, so that there's policies in there that those are maintained, and whether that is through um, making sure that any new purchases of new vehicles or maintenance that needs to be done and allocated through the budgeting process, that is done, and that's made a major part of any of mayor and council's review of any of the budgeting. And so that is one of the policies within the, I believe it's chapter 8. And so if you wanted to look in there, but we can definitely add a little bit more, since it seems as though that is a point that is important to you, as well as I'm guessing many of the other members of the council as well, that maintenance of city vehicles is a priority for you.
I guess I'm not totally ready, but I do like what direction you're going. Thank you, sir.
And I think what might be of most interest to you would be cost of development, which is element 9. And so that does talk about creating fair share. So as you had mentioned, a small business owner being able to, with 2-meter connections, paying $1,200 just for those connections, is that a fair share? And so there's some policies and action items in there to review and make sure that the city of Safford is requiring a fair share, and that it's not overly burdensome. And so I think the cost of development element might be a good location if there's any comments you have there that we can incorporate anything.
Yeah, well, I don't only want the hospital staff to be able to walk to their job, the subdivision going in by the high school, it's a little condensed, but I want them families, kids to be able to walk to any of the schools too.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, anybody else, any comments or questions? Go ahead.
If you could please approach the podium. Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Kim Martin. I have been an educator here in the Valley for almost 27 years. Just recently, we were told that it is we are going to be reduced by one teacher at one of our schools, namely mine, because of our numbers. So I want you just think about that for just a minute, that these businesses that we are trying to attract, we're not pulling them. And so when you are considering our planning and zoning, think about this very seriously. And this is, again, we are deleting one of our teaching positions because we don't have the numbers. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. If no more, then we'll go ahead and, anybody in the public have any comments or anything, questions? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and close the work session and reconvene into our regular meeting. Then we'll move on to item number 6. And that item is adoption of the updated 2026 draft general plan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So we've all taken the notes of the updates and then any typos, things like that. Mr. Henry had some pictures. We're looking at different pictures and adding those. You could just email me. You can also email me more substantive changes. Tonight, what you'll be voting on is just this as a draft with the changes that you've mentioned, and that this will go to the agencies for review, and that we still have a couple of months for more public input. The survey is over, but they can still contact me. I'll be going to the Rotary Club. I'd like to mention this at every council meeting until then. And they can still contact me. What you're voting for is the look, the feel, the basic layout, and the exact content can still be fine-tuned.
Mayor, I move that we approve the adoption of the updated 2026 draft general plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the updated 2026 draft general plan. All in favor? Opposed? And we'll move on to item number 7.
Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.